What's the best Christmas present you've received? My family was abusive and poor. Growing up I always kind of hated Christmas time because it just sort of highlighted how bad my own life was. Well, one year after I moved away to college, I was scheduled to work Christmas Day. Since I was a resident advisor, a student who had been evicted from housing for selling illegal substances came after me and attacked me. The school told me I should leave campus until the police caught the kid. I didn't have anywhere to go, so I called my best friend. Her and her dad drove all the way to my school on Christmas Eve to get me. When I woke up, I discovered that my friend's mom had somehow conjured up a full stocking and a couple small gifts. It was the most amazing gift, because I had never had a good Christmas. And then her mom just went so above and beyond to make me feel loved. When I was a little girl, 5 or 6, I was obsessed with ballerinas. My dad got me tickets to a professional performance of the Nutcracker. It was just him and me. I still remember feeling so grown up when we had dinner beforehand in a grown-up restaurant. The ballet was beautiful. It was just a wonderful day. My brother was starting a new fitness routine and told me he wanted to make a competition out of who could improve their body dimensions. I wasn't planning on working out or anything but wanted to encourage him, so said screw it and let him measure my upper body. Turns out it was for a custom-made Captain America leather motorcycle jacket. I screamed like a little girl on Christmas morning. I was 7 years old and I coo with pneumonia. It was horrible timing because Christmas was that week. The nurses brought in a massive television with a Nintendo GameCube hooked up to it. The only game I played was Mario Sunshine the entire time I was in the hospital. I love that game so much. It was so colorful and just super exciting to play. Since I didn't even know the game existed, it is still my favorite Mario game ever made, but I'm biased. Well, I made it out of the hospital just a few days before Christmas, and on Christmas Day we went to my aunt's house. We started opening gifts, and they got me my very own GameCube, but it didn't appear I had any games for it. They tricked me and hid the other gift they bought. It was Mario Sunshine. I've never ever had tears of joy, but when I opened these gifts I couldn't help but cry. I was so surprised and so happy. I've still never experienced the same emotions I had in that day. My dad and I have an extremely distant relationship. He was never an affectionate or emotional person. All birthdays, celebrations, events, etc. went to my mom to organize. It was just simply not a task he was involved in. He didn't give gifts or engage in the theatrics of any of it, and I can't blame him. He is an immigrant, lived a very hard life, and culturally speaking, this is just how it was for him. One Christmas, I was probably like 10 or 11. I noticed among all the other presents I had from my mom and other family, there was an actual present from my dad addressed to me. I opened it, and it was like this child's picture book. Not a baby book, but definitely aimed for about age 7 to 8 and way too young for me. It was just shocking to me that he would first of all care about getting me a present at all, and secondly, choose this child's book out of all the things he could gotten. I realized, at 10 years old, that my dad genuinely had no idea what to get me, but wanted to get me something. He only knew that I loved to read and read books all day long, so he got me a book, even though he had no idea what level reading I was on. Maybe that is not a very good story, or makes him seem bad, but it will always stick with me. He is such a non-sentimental and stoic person. I can't imagine him going to a bookstore, choosing this very cute colorful book with me in mind, and actually giving it to me as a gift. But he did. He wanted to give me something, in his awkward way, and tried his best. I know you're not supposed to give pets as gifts, but a few days before Christmas, when I was 9, my mum gave me a little kitten. She was the last one left and was small, skinny with runny eyes and runny nose. I adored her, and for 12 years she was the light of my life. My mom bought me my real estate course with the little money she had left. She taped 100s into a real estate book of houses listed. I cried. 3 years later, and I now pay her mortgage each month and help her buy her life-saving meds. Without that gift she probably wouldn't be alive. We didn't have a lot of money growing up, and one year my mom bought my brother and I those round sleds from the dollar store. We went to my grandma's house with them. She had a lot of land, and she took us sledding on the hills behind her house for literally the entire day. So much sledding that one of the sleds got a hole in it. She finally convinced us to go inside, as I'm sure she was freezing, and made us hot chocolate. My brother and I bet her that she wouldn't wake up at 4 AM the next morning and take us sledding while the sun rose. Point she did. I love her so much. We are pretty poor and I'm disabled, but my daughter is obsessed with Hamilton the musical. She's an amazing kid and really helps me a lot and never complains. I saved from the second I'd heard the show was coming to London, so last Christmas year we bought tickets to see Hamilton in London for our daughter. I honestly thought she was going to pass out, she was so happy. We saved like crazy for the hotel and flights as we are at the opposite side of the country. We made a mini holiday of the trip. She had never had a holiday either. It was one of the best experiences ever. I love the show, but I couldn't stop watching my daughter's face. Best seats in the house too. Cost a fortune, but definitely worth it. It was my best Christmas present, watching her face getting her best Christmas present. Original Nintendo. We grew up poor, and I wasn't expecting to get anything on my Christmas list that my mom insisted we fill out cause Santa was coming to the ghetto. On Christmas I was ready for whatever, except the Nintendo I unwrapped. I sat there staring at it in disbelief until my mom snapped me out. If it asking what I thought about it, don't remember what I said. I was in shock for 2 weeks. I slept with that thing and played it non-stop the whole Christmas break. My prosthetic leg. I had a below the knee amputation the Saturday before Thanksgiving this year. Infection in my blood got into the bone and almost took my life. Been on medical leave from work since. Today I saw the surgeon for a post-surgery visit. Was told I'm ahead of schedule healing and recovery wise. I won't get my prosthetic for a while yet, but being told I can start getting fitted for one is a pretty great early gift. My grandfather and I were very close. He would always call me his buddy. He was also into Christmas big time. It was his favorite holiday, and he made it very special for all of us. I guess his Christmas spirit goes back to World War II when he was away from his family for 3 straight Christmases. It was on the final Christmas away from home that he threw a notion in a bottle that traveled all the way from New York Harbor to Dingle Island, but that's a different story for a different day. Back to the original story. My grandfather always came to our house for Christmas. He lived 2.5 hours away in Johnstown, PA. He would spend 2 weeks at our house for Christmas. That year, for some reason he said he wouldn't be able to make it down. I was sad, because this would be the first Christmas without him. Fast forward to Christmas Eve, and there's a knock on our door. I run to the door and my grandfather is standing there. He says, "Hey buddy." I jump into his arms. My mom and my grandfather set it up just to surprise me. I've never felt that same happiness and joy since. A few years later my grandfather suffered a stroke, and he had to be on a breathing machine, so he could no longer come down to our house for Christmas. So we would make the long trek to Johnstown for Christmas. He died 5 years after suffering his stroke. It's been 9 years since he's passed, and every Christmas Eve I hope to hear the knock on the door. When I was in the 8th grade, my band teacher called my mom and told her that I was talented and that if I wanted to continue to play, my current instrument would hold me back. At the time, I played my dad's trumpet, and it was 30 years old. That Christmas my gift was my trumpet. I had to agree to play all the way through high school, and it was difficult for my parents to afford it. I believe it cost about $700-800. It cost enough that we timed the purchase for the same time we were going to a neighboring state that had no sales tax, just to save the $100. I still remember the rain in the parking lot as I walked to the car, clutching the blue case to my chest. It was the most expensive thing I owned, or would own for a long time. Band got me up in the morning. It made it so I went to school even when other kids sucked. It gave me something to work for. It gave me camaraderie and made me depend on others as others depended on me. It gave me pride and showed me the correlation between hard work and reward. It kept me in college when I may have otherwise chickened out, given up and gone home. There is no rush like running onto a field with 30k people screaming in the stands, and music was the only thing that would ever give me that feeling. I'm 33 now, and I don't play that much anymore, but that trumpet, a music stand, and a book of exercises still sits next to my desk. I hope to allow my son to play it someday. The trumpet band. Music in general changed my life. It made me a better person, and it made me who I'm today. I've posted this before, so if it looks familiar, that's why. Also, since I posted this the first time, I've joined my local community band, and I'm playing again. It makes my heart happy. A sketchbook with pencils, colored pencils and erasers from my dad. Drawing and making little comics has always been a huge hobby of mine, and it felt amazing to have it acknowledged, especially by my dad, because he's always been supportive and interested in the things I come up with. A simple gift like that carried a lot of meaning for me. I was 8 years old and my family was very poor. My family had just filed for bankruptcy and my mother can't hold a job, so my dad was working overtime at his gas station job. My parents told me that they just couldn't manage to buy Christmas presents that year, so I was pretty sad considering I was 8, but I understood why. Come Christmas morning, I don't even rush out of bed, because I knew nothing would be waiting for me, but I go out into the living room, and there's a single hula hoop propped up against the tree with my name on it. I was so surprised and happy that I cried. I used that piece of plastic until it fell apart. A few years ago I started working at a farm to pay for a lease on a pretty green little horse. Deal was I got to ride whenever, and I just worked off board. Eventually he would have enough training to be a lesson horse or sold. I was super broke and a waitress at the time. Money was tight, so I jumped at the opportunity. Plus I was miles away from family and had no friends, having recently moved to a dumpy small town. I was so sad and lonely. Around the second or third year I leased him, the barn doubled in size and I ended up working more hours for the same deal. He was still really green, and I was not the best rider, but we made it work enough to show him that year. I won a lot of classes and ended up with a decent season. I worked so hard and proved how special he really was. I was just in love with this little dude. One day after show season my trainer came to me and asked me to buy him. I had changed jobs and was doing better, but could not afford his new price tag. It was a rough few months of not knowing if he was going to be sold or hearing about people who were interested in him. My heart broke every day. He had a rough past. Trust did not come easy. I was so worried for his future. I would cry myself to sleep every night just thinking of losing him. He was my lifeline. I'd like to think I was his too. A few weeks before Christmas my trainer asked my partner to buy him. He said no. Financially it was a bad idea. I was gutted. I knew at this point we were on borrowed time. I know what happens to naughty little horses when their luck runs out. I begged and prayed every night for some sort of miracle. Even though I'm not religious, I just pleaded with the universe. Anything to let me keep him. Right before Christmas we were invited to a small diner at the farm. We exchanged small gifts. It was nice. But then they handed me a little box with a card. The card had a poem like The Night Before Christmas, but it was about all the horses I took care of. I was asked to read it out loud, and as I got to the bottom it was clear what would be in the box. A stall plate for my horse with my name as the owner and his passport signed over to me. I was in such shock I didn't even cry. I actually full on panicked, because I didn't know if my partner knew or would be mad, but man was that the best present I've ever received. It's been a few years, he's still the best thing that has ever happened to me. I've changed my life to be able to afford him, worked hard and have a good job. I still work at the farm because I love it, but I felt like all of the bad things in my life happened just so I could appreciate having him that much more. It's silly, he's just a horse, but to me, he's my whole heart in one package.